everybody. It's Brianna Henneke-Hodges here with another episode of Learning Through Uncertainty, a Future Ready Schools podcast. Today with me, I have one of my personal favorites, huge mentor of mine, somebody that I look up to a lot, and that is Brian McCann, principal for Joseph Case High School in Massachusetts. So hello, Brian. Thanks so much for making time for us today.
Thank you, Brianna. What a pleasure to be with you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. Before we get started, I would love for you to share with us who you serve, what you kind of where you're at, just a little bit for people who don't follow you yet. So I know you're always sharing wonderful things about what you're doing out on your campus. So I want people to definitely jump in and follow you. But if you can just share a little bit about who you are and where you serve, that would be great.
Well, I am blessed to be in my 18th year of being the high school principal at Joseph Case High School in Swansea, Massachusetts. And the reality is it's the only place I've ever been since about 1976, with the exception of going to college and all that. I graduated from Case High School in 1980. I began teaching here full-time in 1989. I taught for 12 years. I was the assistant principal for 4 years. And again, it's my 18th year of being the high school principal. And it's wonderful to watch, to be part of the evolution of an institution. I've been through 5 accreditations of this high school, 5. Most people can't survive 1. I've been through 5. So it's a pleasure to be here. And I back at you with inspiration. So lucky to be connected with so many wonderful educators across this country and around the world. And really, there's your positive power of social media.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We have, you got to use those powers for good. And right. Social media certainly brings together people in that way. And I am so grateful for that as well. Well, that said, we were chatting a little bit ahead of time, and we've talked about a little bit about what this year has looked like, even previous years, right? There's a lot of challenges that are present within our educational system. And there's a lot of choices here for you to pick from, but I would like for you to share a particular challenge that you've experienced, within the last few years, and maybe give us a strategy or two that you found useful adapting to that.
Well, I don't know if my challenge is particular to this school, but it's particular to schools that aren't one-to-one schools. I know you have a lot of schools out there in the country that are one-to-one schools in the communities. We're not one of them here. We're not a one-to-one school. So when, March 2020 happened and we thought we were going to be out of school for like a week or 2, right? Remember that?
I do.
Yeah, right. And then we realized, it was going to be for the rest of the school year. I was like, well, what are we doing about devices? How are we getting kids devices here? So we dismantled all of these Chromebook carts, and the fear was we're never going to get these devices back. And guess what? We got 100% of them back. And it was that the advocation the advocacy that we had to. Even though maybe the first thing was, I don't think we can do this. I think it was school leaders saying we have to do this. We have to do this for the children. And it was, parents contacting me, families contacting me. I'm driving to people's homes, delivering devices to them, going to their houses to get devices at the end. And then we come back to school and we're not one-to-one. Right, we're not one-to-one, so that has been a challenge. Whereas we had the year when we gave them out, we extended it that next school year, and right now we're not one-to-one, and that is a challenge for us. But I think with that, what do we learn from that? For being an educator, we learned that really the power of patience and grace. That we have to have a plan B for everything, that there isn't always a device out there. And it might be for some of your communities where it's not so much the device, but it's they don't have the connectivity, right? There's connectivity issues. So again, that grace and flexibility with in delivering whatever curriculum or whatever discipline you're doing it, and that has been a challenge. But I like to think that I continue to model and advocate for children every day. It was funny. It was a question that came up on my morning. I do a Twitter chat every morning at 5:30 for 15 minutes. And today's was what's a non-negotiable, and mine is the advocacy for children. Whereas there's other mountains I might not feel I have to die on, but not really when it's advocating for kids. And I think it's a wonderful thing to show them, to show kids that you will, fight for them, fight for their rights. So I think that was something good that came out of a tough situation that we continue to wrestle with here.
So that's really interesting, because you said that you guys kind of created a one-to-one situation, and then kind of sort of bring it back a little bit. So how is that impacting the learning environment for your kiddos?
Yeah, that's so we went from kids having, if I don't feel like going to school today, I'll just take a remote day, right? It was that remote option that was always and that's off the table now. So it really was a total recalibration of the way kids felt, or students felt, or children felt as well here. No, it has been a struggle. It has been a struggle, but I think in the long run, it will give us data, to present to our community that we really need to go to a one-to-one school. So I'm hoping some good will come of it as well.
Yeah. And I imagine trying to really define that purpose around when you're using what you're using, right? Like really being intentional with the pedagogy from the standpoint of those teachers, of choosing, okay, it's not just a tool. The tool's not driving what you're trying to teach. Instead, you're teaching and leveraging those tools instead of having the tool leverage the pedagogy.
I agree. It's funny, and all now all teachers are have become more expert in technology infusion and or integration in what they do. Whereas you go back 5 years ago and it was like a bonus, like we're gonna have a bonus, we're gonna have some tech in this class. Or I can remember once they purchased smart boards for us, but they never gave us the why.
Right.
And so the smart boards, we used them for a little while, but then they just, I don't know, they went away to smartboard heaven again. So I don't know what happened to them, but you need to give people the why. I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, and just even hearing you say with your students, right? Of well, if I don't feel like coming, okay, well then what does your environment look like, right? Okay, if you're not able to come, if you don't feel like coming, well then what are the pieces that you need to do, and why do you need to do them? I mean, I've watched that with my own kids, where it's are we assigning stuff just to assign so that way we can say, yes, this is something that we're doing during the day, or can we bring that back and attach meaning and reasoning to why our assignments are even being, put out there. And I think that's not to say that, I mean, it's such a fine line that educators walk on a daily basis, because now we have such a greater window, a larger window into the classroom than has ever been there before, right? Because the classroom went home, and now all of a sudden and so parents and our community are looking at a very fine, at a greater, I guess, greater measure of scrutiny than ever before. But at the same time, we're also trying to keep in mind that our kids don't need to have, there's such a thing as busy work. There's such a thing as just assigning to assign. And, you got to resist that temptation as well.
I think that was one of the gifts of a COVID school year. Very little busy work. Everything was very purposeful. And maybe we cut, the assessment down to bare bones. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's a good thing. Mm-hmm. It also, taught us to be more collaborative. Without a doubt, and that, and again, that not to sound like a broken record, but I think it gave all stakeholders, the teachers as well as the families as well as the students, just a lesson in patience and grace here. That not everything is going to work out, the first time here, and also the power of iteration, right? We were forced to become acolytes of the growth mindset, right? We needed to work harder. We needed to work differently to achieve a better outcome than we had last week.
Right, right. Well, and like you said, best laid plans, right? Like we can have these wonderful intentions and these best laid plans, and then it's not working. I mean, I was coming to school today. I was dropping my kids off at school today, and when I got to my office, I was looking through some things, and there was a post on our local social media about why was this particular school, why were they out on this day? And they were like, this wasn't part of our calendar. We've got kids who are telling us that they don't have school, but it's not part of our calendar, and we're not really sure what's going on. And as I dug through the thread, somebody had said, well, they were having technology issues, and this particular school functions as an in-person virtual situation. So they do a lot of work using technology and turning in their work and receiving their work through learning management systems and things like that. And they were like, basically, we can't get online. And if we can't get online, our kids can't connect. And so we're having to call off school because of that implementation, that problem. And it just reminded me of you saying like connectivity issues, and you never know when there's going to be an outage in one particular area, or, here in my rural area, if the wind is blowing too hard, sometimes, you're not going to be able to maintain that level. So remembering that grace that comes beyond just expecting this to happen because this was my intention. Instead, remembering to lean into that grace opportunity.
And on the other side of that, last school year, we up here in the Northeast, well, at least in my community, we didn't have any snow days because every day, if we had a inclement weather day, just became a remote learning day here.
Mm-hmm.
But there were some communities that had a snow day, other ones had remote learning. So just kind of pitted community against community in terms of their mindset here, which was not a good thing. With COVID, the comparisons between communities is just not fair.
Right.
We're all doing the best we can, but we have the chance of snow days here again this year, so that's good.
always
like a snow day. We had a foul weather day last week. We had like hurricane force winds. We had awful winds and damages last week here, but it was no school, so that was a little bit of a blessing. Not so much in June when we're here for some extra time.
In the moment, it's nice to have a little bit of a reprieve. Well, one of the things that happens with change is that you hit on this earlier. You talked about iteration, and we often really think we gather our plan, we gather our ideas, and we set out to do something, and then inevitably it doesn't quite work out the way that we did. Do you have an example of a circumstance maybe over the last few years where you tried something and it required you to tweak it a little bit, to iterate on it?
I'll tell you, with the uncertainty last year, and this is not a teaching thing, this is more of a building administrative thing, probably a high school administrator, was, what are we going to do about graduation? Here we have a rite of passage that we had a very strange graduation in 2020. We had an in-person graduation event that went on for over 7 hours, where families would come to the high school for a little mini. Literally, we had like 130 mini graduations, and then I drove to people's houses. That didn't feel, but what was graduation going to look like? And you had families wanting to know in September and October what things were going to look like in the beginning of June. And my answer was like, I don't know. And by the end, we had pretty much a traditional graduation with outside, and because we were outside, we didn't have to wear masks. But it was probably like 4 days after the mask mandate was lifted in our state here. So that was one thing that we kept coming up with a plan, and then the state would change their mind, and then we have to come up with another plan, and the state would change their mind. What are we going to do about that? And that was a source of frustration for kids. It was a source of frustration for families. And it was My iteration muscle is very well sculpted after last year here. So I think, best laid plans, that the plans kept changing because the conditions kept changing, the state kept changing, or the state wasn't always, I felt, as timely as they could have been with giving me, the information in order to make an informed decision on it. But at the end of the day, graduation, was a joyous communal event last year. But it's probably something that is more akin to high schools than a middle school or element. But you have end of the year, right? Celebrations that are community here. So maybe what I went through, other people went through, just on a different level here.
Well, and I think you absolutely have those traditions, those routines, those rituals of learning that are very in place in communities at whatever level. I mean, my elementary daughter, my elementary age daughter is. We just had community picnic, like their family picnic at their school, and so trying to navigate what that looks like, and just all of those ways. I mean, from open house to high school graduation to all of the beginning of the year football games, pep rallies, all of those different pieces. It forced us to re-examine why we're doing it and how we're doing it, right? And I think that the element that comes in with that, right, is what is the investment that the community has within your school, and that's a blessing. And we have to remember that's a blessing, oftentimes in disguise, right? Because people have very strong opinions when they're invested in something, and when it changes, you gotta walk that narrow.
I agree with you. Just people can't expect that school and its social functions are going to look like 1995 or 2005 or 2015, for that matter. I mean, I just had a meeting a couple hours ago on our homecoming event. Now we'll be outside under a tent, and because of that, and we're up here in the Northeast, we don't know what the weather, if it's going to be really cold in 2 weeks. Probably not frigid, but it could be in the 40s, right? But we're going to be, we're going to get a tent. But that was quite a big to do for us to, in order to make that happen here. So I think people expect these things, they're not entitled to them either.
Right.
That we're trying our best to make them work, but they might not look like your high school experience or literally my high school experience here, right? But we're going to have homecoming outside. We're going to have a pep rally. We have a pep rally before our big, we play football on Thanksgiving up here. We're going to have a pep rally outside the day before, because I don't think I can have 600 people in the gym kind of, doing all the fun games and all that for, hours. So we'll do it outside, because we can do that. We can make that happen outside. Again, but it goes back, we have to be iterative, we have to be creative, and we want to give them a sense of tradition, but it might not be recreating exactly what you had in high school.
Replication, right? Honoring the intention, but finding it in our new opportunities around us.
No, I agree. I think I'm writing that down. Honoring the intention is awesome. That's exactly what we're doing.
It's I go back to it because I hosted Thanksgiving last year, but I hosted Thanksgiving outside because it was the only way that we could have our family on site in order to be around each other. And the alternative was to not celebrate Thanksgiving together. And, did it look different? Did it involve me having to go and buy blankets and do all these different things in order to make sure that people were comfortable outside? Absolutely. But at the same time, it was better than canceling. And I think that, I'm listening to your situation and reminding us that things are, you have a choice here. You have a choice to just flat out not do it, which is not really what we're wanting to do, but we're willing to do some different things in order to keep the intention that comes along with it.
I'll give you a great example of that here at Joseph Case High School. So we're probably the only school that did more theater in a COVID school year than, so we normally do 4 productions, 4 major productions. We did 5 last year. Yes, some are outside, but that's wonderful. Whereas so many schools around it, no, we can't do it. We can't even think about it here. We did 2 shows in November outside. We did a video show in the wintertime, and then when restrictions started to ease a little bit, we were able to do 2 musicals, really one weekend after another here. And we're a small school. We're a school of under 550 kids. And sometime for our musicals, we'll have between 200 and 300 kids involved in it in the school. So theater is huge here. But we were able to do more last year, and I'm very, very, very proud of that. And I am a product of our theater program here at the high school. So it might not be a spoiler alert out there, but
Awesome. Well, the last thing that I want to ask you, and you've kind of alluded to this throughout our conversation, so I don't think we're gonna be surprised by your answers in this, but I want to go ahead and formally ask you, what or who motivates you to put in the time and effort to reshape learning reshape learning from before COVID, like learning BC, into our present, into our future ready learning?
Yeah, without a doubt, it's the children coming off the bus. It has to be the kids. Whenever you get caught up in feeling bad about yourself or feeling stressed here, get out of your office, get out of your classroom, and go spend some time with children at the school, and they will ground you, and they will motivate you, and they will bring you up to the next level, without a doubt. People outside, I'm going to say that the people that the universe has found for me on social media challenge me and inspire me. And I say, oh, it's not funny. I wonder how they did that. And I start thinking, well, I guess I could do that. And maybe that won't look exactly. But definitely the educators that I follow, a lot on Twitter, some on Facebook, some on Instagram, but mostly on Twitter, definitely elevate me. And I love to see people celebrating what they do. But what grounds me, without a doubt, I think what grounds, what grounds educators is the children. Because you might be the only smile that kid sees today. You might be the only kind voice that child hears today. So it better be a strong voice. It better be a big smile. And they do as much for you as you do for them.
So I'm gonna ask you to share just a little bit, because I know one of my favorite things that you do on a regular basis is you do your positive signs. Can you share just a little bit? And this was something you did before the pandemic. So can you share a little bit just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So it started like 2015. I read a post on Twitter that this principal who I followed and that I had met once was challenging his faculty to join him at his high school outside of Chicago to stand and welcome kids with a positive sign. And I was like, oh my goodness, that sounds awful. I would hate that. That sounds like you're begging for, I don't know what. But it haunted me, Brianna. It just haunted me. So on the first Thursday of the new school year, I thought, well, they're gonna roll their eyes about something you do today, Brian. It might as well be holding a sign. And so I came up with a sign. I just said, "You are fabulous." And I stood there in front of the bus as kids got off. And the kids looked at it, and then they smiled, and they said, "Thank you." And they said, "You're fabulous too." Well, that's all I needed to hear. And I know I got a lot of great feedback that week from parents, from teachers, from the school committee. They said, "Isn't this wonderful?" And the next week, a student said to me, "Oh, you're going to do it tomorrow?" I said, "Oh, I don't know about that." They said, "Oh, I was kind of looking forward to it." And literally, I've done it every Thursday since. I mean, it's gone on for 6 years, and it's something that I spoke about at like state conferences and national conferences. And now you have schools all around the country that might not be Thursdays like I do it, but a lot do it on Thursday. And just sharing one positive, intentional sign. And I take pictures with students, and then I post it. I really guide the story of the high school. But I think it's the power that we have to tell our story and to promote positivity in our school community. And it doesn't cost any money. It doesn't cost any money whatsoever to get your cell phone camera and have and my students. I had a group of freshman boys saying, "When are you taking a picture with me, Mr. McCann?" And I was like, "Next Thursday." So
Be ready
to it every Thursday on Twitter. Well, we post on a couple different platforms now, but we're hashtag Positive Sign Thursday. It's been a great thing, and it definitely inspired by Jason Markey in Illinois, but it began wholeheartedly. Oh, funny thing, Brianna, I saw Jason Markey later on the year. I said, "Oh, Jason, thank you so much for doing that." And he said something like, "Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, we stopped after a few weeks, but you really do it so well." But you know what? You never know who you're going to find inspiration from.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you lean into it. And I think that's one of the things that, you've taken that idea and you've stepped into it and made it not just your own, but Joseph Case High School's own. Truly your students embody that.
But I have schools in Canada do it. I have a school in Israel doing it. I had a school in the Dominican Republic do it. All across from Alaska to Florida, from Idaho. I have a school in Idaho, and then they tag me with these things. My social media blows up on Thursdays with people tagging, and it's great. It's great, and our friend Raina Friedman curates all of these in a wakelet every week. Yeah. It's wonderful, and it's not just a high school thing. I have middle school and elementaries and day school programs. It's amazing. It's amazing to sometimes, and humbling to think, oh my gosh, that started out here 6 years ago with a and I have one student is who I'm actually related to. I've taken a picture with him every week since his high school career began. And then I've taken a picture with his two brothers as well. So I have 6 years of like family photos of Positive Sign Thursday. I once had this mother come to me. She said, "I want to talk to you about Positive Sign Thursday." And I was like, this isn't going to go well. She says, "I just want to thank you." So then I knew it was okay. Thank you because you take a picture with my daughter every week. She gets up earlier. She makes sure she looks good. And I was like, okay, I'll take it. I'll take any encouragement here. So it's Positive Sign Thursday has been a great thing. And it's something that was inspired by another principal, and it's a gift that we give to other schools as well. And if you're not doing that, check us out on Thursday. And I just had a school in Missouri. I didn't even know who the person was. "Brian, what do you think? How do we get started?" I said, "You just have to have the courage to do it the first week. That's it."
And I love that you shared that you didn't want to do it. You're like, "This is gonna be terrible,"
no,
and then you did it, and then
awful.
Now you're like, "Yeah."
I'm so embarrassed for him doing that, and now I'm like, I can't wait for Thursdays. And it's nice because you can get up your message, like you can get that growth mindset message. You can tell people to work harder. You can tell them to have grace. You can tell them to be strong. You can tell them they're beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. You can tell all these things to kids, and they, my kids, I think for the most part, look forward to it. And the parents are giving me the thumbs up. I mean, the whole thumbs up thing just emerged out here. And now it's just like what we do on the signs here. Now, and other schools do it on the signs too. It's funny. You never know the influence you have on other people or how you have been influenced here. But thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I love, to piggyback on that, you never know that I think too often we don't recognize the power that words have on each other, not just on ourselves, but on others. And that's so much what we talk about in education, right? Is coming forward, letting our kids know we're here for you. We care about you. We see you. We want you to have a part in the school. And that's what Positive Sign Thursday means to me. And
the other part of this is a conversation we've had many times, Brianna, about just the power of sharing your story, of storytelling, of little snippets from your life, and how people can feel from those little snippets that they're not alone. That, oh my gosh, you go through that too. You've had an experience like that. That's so powerful. It's all about making connections, whether it's through storytelling or through a sign.
Yeah. Yes. And you and I've talked about that before. Like that's story, that is that vehicle of learning, right? It takes you from, I don't know anything about this, to now, oh my gosh, I do know something about this, or I've seen this, or I'm now connected to it. And that right there is what we try to do every day. What we aspire to do every day is increase that learning, increase that story, and increase those connections.
That's right.
Awesome. Well, it has been a true pleasure having you today. And I thank you so, so much for taking time out of your day. Make sure that you follow Brian online at Case High Prince. We'll make sure that it's connected and on the on the screen. That's the word I'm trying to find, that screen that we'll have out there. And also make sure that you jump in on Positive Sign Thursday. If not, you need to. It'll totally fill your heart, and it'll give you some ideas of how you can incorporate that into the future. So on behalf of Future Ready Schools, I am Brianna Henneke-Hodges. This is Brian McCann. We say thank you so, so much for joining us today. And we look forward to seeing you down the road in some future episodes as well. Thanks so much, y'all. Despite our good intentions, 2020 helped us clearly see that while each day brings a multitude of uncertainties, future-ready leaders are leaning into those opportunities, leading necessary changes to address inequities and learning through uncertainty. Learning Through Uncertainty is hosted by me, Brianna Henneke-Hodges, National Faculty for Future Ready Schools. In each episode, we'll connect with Future Ready instructional leaders and learners as they share their expertise, advice, and experience reimagining teaching and learning to better suit today's learners with tomorrow's techniques. Together, we'll reimagine possibilities, renew communities, and reinvigorate pedagogical practices. Together, we'll redesign environments, recalibrate services, and reconnect purpose, passion, and practice. Subscribe and listen to Learning Through Uncertainty wherever you get your podcasts. Go ahead and subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Learning Through Uncertainty and Future Ready Schools are projects of all for ed, because together we're better, and together we're future ready.